live. Okay, I think I'm live. I think I'm live. Oh, did I push it? Oh, I think I need to try again. It says I'm on YouTube, actually. Oh, it worked. Okay, so this is Suvijana speaking, and I'm still on the learning curve for technology, and I may for the rest of my life because it always changes. So today, this evening, I have chosen some extracts from the suttas, and it's about crossing the flood is what I've titled this sharing, this Dhamma sharing today. And this is I'm going to share some reflections. These are it's in the Buddhist teaching. There's often similes and poetry, and this is meant to touch our hearts in a little bit different way than just the intellectual understanding. So we can reflect on these similes somewhat like a meditation, because it evokes a kind of feeling and intuition a little bit differently than if we're just looking at more intellectual type teachings. So I'm going to read from, this is actually an entire sutta, and there's a very brief suttas. They're collections of verses in the Samyutta Nikaya. The first whole section of the suttas is verses, or there's maybe a conversation and then someone will speak in verse. And this is in the Devata Samyutta, and this is devas are celestial beings. They're described as radiant beings, and they're beings from one of the heavenly realms. And a person with psychic powers like the Buddha is able to see them, and the Buddha and the devas would come, and the devatas. It's a some people say devatas are the smaller of the devas, or the lesser devas, but it's just another word for celestial beings. But these beings would come and visit the Lord Buddha. Often he'd be sitting in the middle of the night, late at night, and then a radiant deva would light up the grove where he was sitting. So this is a conversation with the Buddha and a certain deva. So this is entitled Crossing the Flood, and that's the very first in the Samyutta Nikaya. It's in the book of verses in the Devata Samyutta. Thus I have heard on one occasion the Blessed One was dwelling at Sawati in Jeta's grove, Anathapindika's park. Then, when the night had advanced, a certain Devata of stunning beauty, illuminating the entire Jeta's grove, approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One and stood to one side and said to him, "How, dear sir, do you cross the flood? Did you cross the flood? Excuse me. By not halting, friend, and by not straining, I crossed the flood. But how is it, dear sir, that by not halting and by not straining, you cross the flood?" When I came to a standstill, friend, then I sank. But when I struggled, then I got swept away. It is in this way, friend, that by not halting and by not straining, I crossed the flood. And the Devata responded in verse. After a long time, at last I see a Brahman who is fully quenched, who by not halting, not straining, has crossed over attachment to the world. This is what the Devata said. The teacher approved. Then that Devata thinking, the teacher has approved of me, paid homage to the Blessed One, and keeping him on the right, disappeared. So this is, I think it's a important teaching because it's giving us a clue about how to approach our practice. And it's by not straining, by not halting. So we don't, we need to make a certain amount of effort. We need to keep moving forward, but we shouldn't be using too much force. So if we have the simile of crossing of fording a stream in this sutta, we can't stand still because we'll be swept away. And we can't struggle too hard because then we'll exhaust ourselves. So this is the first extract. It's not an extract, actually. It's an entire sutta. It's the first. And the Samyutta, the connected discourses of the Buddha. So we can reflect for a moment about the idea of not struggling or straining and not halting or standing still. It's not exactly a paradox, but it's a middle way. The next reading I'm going to share with you is from the simile of the snake. And the simile of the snake talks about the wrong grasp of views. So if you, even if you have the correct teaching, if you grasp it incorrectly, then it's like a snake. If you, I guess at the time of the Buddha, they had uses for snakes. And if you grabbed the snake at the tail, the snake would bite you. But if you grabbed, or you actually, it talked about using some kind of a hook or a tool to put at the base of the snake's neck. And even though the snake the body of the snake might coil around you, it can't bite you. So it's grasping correctly. But this particular sutta appears in that there's a whole discussion about the misuse of teaching it. If we use it for egotistical means to debate, then you memorize the teachings and we try to appear like intelligent and just use it for showing off our wit, then it's the wrong use of the teaching. So this is a fairly well-known simile, and it's the simile of the raft. So it appears further down in the sutta. just after the simile of the snake. So the Buddha says, this is Bhante Sujato's translation. Mendicants, I will teach you a simile of the Dhamma as a raft for crossing over, not for holding on. Listen and apply your mind, and I will speak. Yes, sir, they replied. The Buddha said this, suppose there was a person traveling along the road. They'd see a large deluge, whose near shore was dubious and perilous, while the far shore was a sanctuary free of peril. But there was no ferry boat or bridge for crossing over. They'd think, why don't I gather grass and sticks, branches, and leaves and make a raft? Riding on that raft and paddling with my hands and feet, I can safely reach the other shore. And so they do exactly that. And when they crossed over to the far shore, they'd think, this raft has been very helpful to me. Riding on the raft and paddling with my hands and feet, I have safely crossed to the far shore. Why don't I hoist it on my head or pick it up on my shoulder and go wherever I want? What do you think, mendicants? Would that person be doing what should be done with that raft? Does that make sense to continue to carry the raft after you've crossed the deluge? And the mendicants answer, no, sir. And what mendicant should that person do with the raft when they've crossed over? They should think, this raft has been very helpful to me. And then there's ellipses. Why don't I beach it on dry land or set it adrift on the water and go wherever I want? That's what that person should do with the raft. So this is about, the teaching is about, as he'll say here, in the same way I've taught the simile of the Dhamma as a raft for crossing over, not for holding on. By understanding the simile of the raft, you will even give up the teachings, let alone what is against the teachings. So this, until we're ready to let go completely, we don't let go midstream. You know, when we're paddling across, we don't decide, okay, I'm just going to let go. And in the notes, it talks about if we're developing our moral conduct and our bright states of mind, it doesn't mean that we'll give these up. It's not clinging to it or clinging to the idea of it, or it's not for holding on. So eventually we need to completely let go. And for Nibbana, it's just utter letting go, more than we could possibly imagine. So I've also heard a teaching is like similar to a ladder. And when you're climbing a ladder up to a roof, you're going to hold on to the ladder. And each step up, you're progressing upwards. But until you get to the roof, you've got to be holding on to that. So it's the same with the teachings. And also the development of bright states. So we don't let go or discriminate the bright states until we're ready to really examine them and seeing their impermanence and being able to let go. So I've taken another extract. This is from the simile of the vipers, and I cut to the simile of the raft, which is included in this, and it's about a person, and he's heard all these warnings about. It's about getting the teachings about samsara and about the body being impermanent and the five aggregates and the danger of craving and the interior and exterior sense bases and how that they're empty, hollow, and they impact us. And so this person is he's hearing about these dangers, and it's all in similes, and he's actually kind of feeling like he's being pursued by these dangerous elements. So he's doesn't know where to go. He's running and trying to escape. And then here's the extract that I took. He would see a great expanse of water whose near shore was dangerous and fearful, and whose further shore was safe and free from danger. But there would be no ferry boat or bridge for crossing over from the near shore to the far shore. And that person would think, there is a great expanse of water whose near shore is dangerous and fearful, and whose further shore is safe and free from danger. But there is no ferry boat or bridge for crossing over. Let me collect grass, twigs, branches, and foliage, bind them together into a raft. So by means of that raft, making an effort with my hands and feet, I can get safely across to the far shore. Then that person would collect grass, twigs, branches, and foliage and bind them together into a raft. And by means of that raft, making an effort with his hands and feet, he would get safely across to the far shore. Crossed over, gone beyond, the Brahman stands on high ground. So the Lord Buddha gives an explanation of all the similes he's used, and this is the explanation of the raft. The great expanse of water, this is the designation for the four floods: the flood of sensuality, the flood of existence, the flood of views, the flood of ignorance. The near shore, which is dangerous and fearful, this is the designation for identity. The far shore, which is safe and free from danger, this is the designation for Nibbana. The raft, this is the designation for the Noble Eightfold Path. That is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right, this is samadhi, concentration, or stillness. Making an effort with the hands and feet, this is a designation for arousing of energy. Crossed over, gone beyond, the Brahman stands on high ground. This is the designation for the Arahant. So this is, I selected this extract because it explains the metaphors, what the Buddha was referring to earlier. So this is the middle way, and not straining. I'm going to read again. The Devata had asked, "Dear sir, how did you cross the flood?" And the Lord Buddha said, "By not halting, friend. By not straining, I crossed the flood." But how is it, dear sir, that by not halting and by not straining, you cross the flood? When I came to a standstill, friend, then I sank. But when I struggled, Then I got swept away. It is in that way, friend, by not halting and not straining, I cross the flood. And the Devata responds by saying, after a long time, at last I see a Brahman who is fully quenched, who by not halting, by not straining, has crossed over attachment to the world. So that's a really beautiful expression, and to think about the possibility for us, the Buddha being a human being, and it said that he actually had tried two extremes of standing still and straining, and after realizing that the mistake in that, he found the middle way. And the middle way in the suttas is described as the Noble Eightfold Path. So this is the Buddha's promise to us if we don't give up, we don't strive too hard, but we don't give up. We keep moving forward. So I'll offer this for your reflection. And this time for reflecting, I just end with a meditation. So we can get into a comfortable position. This is the way I've designed the program, is that we can just sit for 40 minutes. I have a timer here that I'm trying to so we can, if you care to, get yourself into a comfortable position for meditation, and then I'll end with a bell. So thank you for joining. I just wanted to give the references to the extracts. The first sutta is Crossing the Flood, and it's in the Connected Discourses of the Buddha, Samyutta Nikaya 1.1. And the second is the simile of the snake, and that's in the Middle Length Discourses, Majjhima Nikaya, and it's number 38. And then the last one is an extract, the last simile in the simile of the vipers. And that's in the Connected Discourses, and that's SN 35.238. And it's a pretty lively simile. So maybe we can go into the whole sutta another time. But thank you so much for joining. And I hope you have a good evening, good meditation.